All right, welcome to the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe. Hello, Edward.
Hello.
How you doing? How you feeling? Christmas
Doing
time.
I'm doing well. Yeah, no, I got everything I pretty much asked for Christmas, which it was just a bunch of movies. But luckily, me and my dad, one of the movies I got was 12 Angry Men, and we're gonna watch that sometime soon because he was really interested in that movie.
So when I was at Sac State, interesting story. So I was a political science major, which that major at Sac State had very few like required courses, which allowed me to take a bunch of courses that weren't in the major, right? And so I took a ton of acting classes, and the reason I did it was because I was like, I know I wanted to be a trial attorney. I want to get up in front of people. So I just took as many acting classes as I could. And interestingly, I think I was in acting two, maybe three. And I the 12 Angry Men came through, and George Wentz, who was famous for playing in Cheers as Norm, he was one of the 12 Angry Men, and they were doing a stage performance, and a couple of them came and spoke at Sac State for our class. It was pretty cool. So
That's awesome. No, I got the Criterion Collection one, so it's showing me like the behind the scenes, and it's
oh,
so cool because I've been watching like the documentaries that are like how it was created and how it went from like a TV movie to an actual production and a movie that was in theaters. And it was
yeah.
really interesting because I at the end of this like interview or documentary that I watched, they said like during that time it did not do too well in the box office. So it's crazy how like now today it's a classic and a lot of people do it through like schools or just even me like in my acting, it's like a lot of people pick monologues from that either
Yeah.
stage script or screenplay and they
Yeah.
they just love that play.
It's interesting, and I don't know if this works the same anymore, but back, I'm going to do the whole back when I was your age thing.
Yeah.
Back when I was your age, the theater experience was so different because it was such a long time between when things were in the theater and when they came out on, you could rent them at Blockbuster. And so you would go to these movies that the only movies you really go to now, unless you're a big film buff, are like Marvel movies, superhero movies, horror films, like the ones that you kind of want a huge screen and a cool sound experience. But if it's something like 12 Angry Men or like some of these indie films that I try to go and see, the theaters are always empty because people just wait for it to come on Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because when you brought that up, I thought about like Billy Madison, right, which basically catapulted Adam Sandler to fame. It did terribly in the box office, but then everybody started renting it at Blockbuster, and then it became a huge classic after the fact. And so I don't know if that still happens. I mean, are there movies out there that kind of did terrible in the box office, but then became big at streaming? Probably.
Because I know during like the pandemic area, there was a lot of like gray area where it was like, oh, what is box office success and like overall success? Because a lot of movies were being released on streaming and then they were also being released in the theater. So they couldn't really decipher like, oh, how much the movie actually profited because there was money coming in from all different ways. But I know like at least right now, which it kind of sucks, but a lot of like the Golden Globe and Critics' Choice Award nominations just came out. And a lot of the movies that have been nominated, especially the ones that are like international, in the international category, they are only being like shown once or twice in the theater. Like I know the Cinemark and the Regals around my house don't play it. I have to take a 30-minute drive to like downtown Sacramento just to go to
Yeah.
the Tower Theater to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just saw The Secret Agent and Sentimental Value. I saw one more. I think it was Hamnet, but I just saw those 3 movies and those were amazing movies, and I totally understand, like, why they got nomination for, like, what they got nominated for. That made sense. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy because I'm like, "Wow, these are, like, going to be classics one day." Like, I can see, like, a lot of dedication and work has been put into this, but because they're not Marvel or they're not the big horror franchises like Scream or it's just they're unknown or kind of like indie films or they're original idea films. So a lot of people aren't seeing those movies, or better yet, it's not in the English language. And a lot of people are like, oh, like you have to read the subtitles or you have to get it dubbed. And it's like, there's still a story behind it and there's still acting happening. And
Yeah,
I thought
those
they were,
movies are
yeah.
those movies, the ones with the subtitles. I've watched some of those movies with subtitles and then dubbed. I prefer the subtitles.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. And I think there's some studios that are still kind of keeping it going. Like A24 is one that I think they do a lot of cool stuff. But in things like even like the Smashing Machine, right? Like The Rock is huge. I haven't seen it yet. I didn't go see it in the theater, but The Rock is huge, and this is supposedly one of his best acting performances of all time. And it failed in the box office, right? But as soon as it streams, I'm sure everyone's going to want to watch it. So I don't know, and I don't even know how they get paid on that. Like, how does The Rock get paid on the streaming form of it? Does he? I don't know.
I'm not very sure about that. I follow a couple actors who have worked in like Netflix and stuff. They said like whenever someone watches the episode, they get like half a penny, but they're also like, extras way in the background, or they have like one or two lines. So,
Yeah,
of course they're not going to get as much as like the big stars like Dwayne.
sure.
But I
Yeah.
just remember when I went to go see that movie, again, it was an empty theater, and I was just like, A24 guys, like this is a huge movie. And I won't spoil it, but there was like a scene that was like very, very dramatic, like right before the end. And it was like one of the biggest gasps that I've heard from everybody in the theater at the exact same time. There was like maybe 10 to 20 of us in there, but we all did the same reaction. And I'm like, people need to see this movie. Like,
Yeah.
if there was more people in here, we would have been experiencing this together. And that's kind of what the theater and television and movies are for, is like joining in one big collective area and getting to experience something as a group, even though we're all kind of strangers in a sense.
So as somebody, for people who don't know you, who might be listening to this, you're an aspiring actor in acting school right now.
Mhm.
And how do you, considering that you're kind of in the trenches of Hollywood kind of right now, how do you feel about this Netflix buying Paramount and Warner Brothers? Does that make you nervous, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I got like the news through just Instagram. I was just scrolling through and I saw it on like just some sort of account. They just posted about it. And I was reading all these articles about how Netflix is saying that people would rather enjoy viewing digital content at home rather than going to the theaters or going some other place to view that content. And I'm like, I don't know. A lot of my memories are at the theater whenever I go with friends and we're laughing. And I just remember, and no disrespect, but like the Naked Gun 2, I went to go see it recently, and I went in going in like, oh, I'm gonna hate this movie. I don't understand it. Like I saw the first one, I was like, I didn't really like that. But what made my viewing experience so much more impactful and probably boosted that movie was the reactions of the people in the theater. And I was laughing with my friends. We were looking at each other like, what was that all about? But it's just like being in that community and being in that place. And then these big studios are like, oh, we need to take them out of the theaters. We need to make it at home only. It's just bonkers. And I kind of know why, because I was watching this interview about, or no, not this interview. It's more, I don't know what it was. It's just like this, I guess, documentary type video on YouTube. And it was saying how like theaters, they get 50% or 40% of the cuts with ticket sales. And the studio gets just like a portion of it. But then when it goes to like straight to streaming, or if it goes straight to DVD and then someone buys that or rents that platform, the studio gets 100% of it. And then there's no like middleman. The theater isn't taking a
Same.
portion out of it.
So there's almost a financial incentive for studios to bypass the theater experience.
Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer because, yeah, you were talking about fun theater experiences. One of my favorite memories ever was my dad and I and my friend Dave. We all went together to the premiere in Sacramento for Anchorman, and it was a sold out. It was a sold out movie, every seat, and that was really the first time you'd seen Will Ferrell as he kind of currently is, right? I mean, that kind of humor style of humor. The only time I think that we'd ever seen anything with him, he did like a Woody Allen movie that really wasn't funny, and then he did Night at the Roxbury, which, I mean, I showed Night at the Roxbury to Austin and Piper, and unless you lived in the like 90s 2000s club scene, you just don't get it. It's not the same. But Anchorman, the theater experience where everybody was laughing so hard at everything, it made the movie one of my favorite movies. If I watched that alone or with my friend, like just a couple of friends at home, it probably would not have been as funny. And so yeah, I agree. I love the theater experience. It's one of my favorite things. I kind of, I long for just even the experience of going and renting a movie. I mean, like going to Blockbuster. When Austin was young, I used to take him. There was a Blockbuster down the street from where we were living down Southland Park while I was in law school, and he was like 4 or 5, I think. And I would take him to the movie store, and he'd get to look around and pick a movie. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of an experience, like getting up, going somewhere, picking something, coming back and watching the movie you picked. And you kind of get that with streaming, but I just feel like when I'm looking through Netflix, I'm so overwhelmed by all of the options. It's just like, geez, man, it's so much. And then the algorithm is picking only, like, I loved also the cool thing about going to the movies or the movie store was that the people who I worked at a Blockbuster for a while, and it was so much fun to just be like a movie nerd and recommend movies to people, or go in and ask these guys. But even before Blockbuster, there was this place called the 99-cent Video Clearance Center, and these guys were the biggest comic book nerds before comic book nerds were cool. And you would like walk in, and me and my buddies, we were probably in 8th grade. We were like, what movies do we have to watch? And I discovered trauma films like Toxic Avenger and Surf Nazis Must Die and Class of Nukem High. And Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, like all of these totally obscure movies that I would never pick. I think that's where I first discovered Monty Python, like all of these different movies that I never would have got. And gave me an affinity for like just kind of cheesy B movies. I never would have gotten if I was just scrolling through Netflix and the algorithm was giving me everything that I looked like I liked, right? It gave me so that's interesting. Have they talked to you? We're going to go over your background, but have they talked to you at all about in your school about how you market yourself in this new climate?
So because I'm still very new to the school, because they have a whole entire second year about audition techniques and like your social media presence, like they really haven't taught us like exactly how to market. They've been kind of typecasting us a little bit, but at the same time they've also been giving us roles and scripts that are completely out of like, I guess, our normal range, just because they want us to build our range and build our characters. But I just remember, like, at least for a personal experience, I got cast for this one commercial, and I usually always ask the directors, like, "Oh, like, why did you pick me?" Or, "What do you think? Is there something I can improve on? Like, how can I make my next project even better? And more importantly, your project I'm working on now, like, what exactly you need?" And I just remember this one company. It was for this Chinese teacup cafe. It's in Sacramento, somewhere over there. But I did that commercial, and I remember asking them, like, "Oh, why did you guys cast me?" And they said, "Oh, you have the most Instagram followers out of everyone who auditioned." And it kind of put me down, because I thought for a second it was like, "Oh, it's because of my talent, or it's because of the certain way I look for them." But it was like, no, it's just I gave them the most publicity.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That it's interesting how fame has changed so much in the last 25, 30 years. I mean, like, for example, Piper and I just I took her for her birthday to see this global girl group called Cat's Eye. You might know who they are.
Yeah.
So I had no idea who they were. She just, how it is. I like to take them all on like one-on-one trips every once in a while, and concerts are a big thing for me. I love live music. So she suggested it, and I found, when I looked at the tickets, they were already sold out completely, the Bill Graham Civic Center. And I was on the secondary market, and the prices were obscene, right? But at the same time, Piper asks so not, she doesn't ask very often. So when she does, so I paid the obscene price to like go to this thing. And it was just so, in fact, that's how I got this bedazzled hoodie here. This is Piper's Christmas gift for me. Yeah, she got me this it says Beautiful Chaos, which I don't know, it describes my life perfectly, filled with bedazzling beautiful chaos. But anyway, but yeah, as I was sitting there listening to them, and these, I mean, you would have thought it was the Beatles coming out when these girls came out, and all of these like 15, 16, 17-year-old girls just dancing and singing. And I'm like, where did these girls come from? And it came from a Netflix documentary. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was like a making the band type thing. And they just all got chosen to be in this band. And now here they are touring the world, and that is so different than it was back in like when I was in high school, where you would go and you would see a band and they would just suck royally. They'd come to this high school, like Cake. You remember the band Cake, right? If you heard of Cake?
Yeah.
So they went to El Camino while I was at Del Campo. They came to our school before they were big and played during lunch. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, now they're Cake, and they tour the world, and that's how it used to be. Now you just get it, go viral on TikTok, and you're famous. It's crazy. So is that what so is that how you have to, like, is that part of what they're going to teach you, is how to kind of become a viral sensation, or what?
Yeah, I know. At least for our second year, from what I've heard from the students that are now taking that course, it's a lot of them have created like a second Instagram account just for like acting and like posting stuff that's only kind of professional in a sense, like nothing more personal about their lives, but they will only post things that they know could possibly build clout or build fame on that platform, which I don't know exactly if I'm going to do that. I still need to learn about that class, but I know for at least my accounts online, I'm just ranting. Like, I know the most recent reel I posted, I was ranting about like McDonald's. So like, I don't think I'm going to go famous on that, but it's just like, I just want to be my true self at all times. And I just thought it was so funny that like one of the McDonald's workers like, oh, it's your third time you went today. And then I'm just like, oh, okay, maybe this is saying a little too much about
my
experience.
Yeah, you got a problem when the drive-through guy knows your order, right? Yeah, that's true. But I got to tell you, man, that McDonald's Diet Coke, that'll get you. That's good stuff, man. They're fountain drinks. But well, I'll just tell you, I've kept my, I keep my social media personal. I'm not public on any of it, but I do know I do follow some stuff because I try to promote this podcast and stuff. And of course, I'm an attorney, and so I remind people when I'm when I win an award or something like that, I put it on there because I'm proud of it. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've learned is on your personal page, you do not want to overwhelm them with your projects. Like, that's the place where you should be authentic. I've noticed that people, like, I kind of have a rule, and I'm giving everybody away my secrets here, but I have a rule where it's like only every fifth post can be about lawyering. Only every fifth post can be about my podcast, because I used to run a wrestling promotion, and I used to promote the crap out of it just on my personal page, and people got sick of hearing about it, right? Like, they just would scroll by. So that's why, but if you're full of things that people like, like you're hanging out with your friends, like you're very authentic. I know I follow you on your, I don't know if it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever you are, but I follow your yeah. But I follow you on your stuff. And you're very authentic. You put stuff about McDonald's, you hanging out with your friends, and then doing your acting. Like, it's organic, because people want authenticity. They don't want to be sold something. Yeah. Every once in a while, it's cool to remind people, like, I'm an actor, right? I mean, but you're also just a human being. And then that professional, like, I have an Edlow Podcast Instagram. Everybody should follow, by the way, if you're listening. And and so I have an Edlow Podcast Facebook and Instagram and a TikTok, and that's where I post all of my podcast stuff. Every once in a while, I'll share it, on my personal page or whatever. But it's just separate, and I think that's the best way to do it. But what do I know? I don't take a class. I just figured it out.
Yeah, and I haven't taken the class either. I know, like, the only rule I don't know if I like follow it exactly, but what I've noticed is like, oh, I only post like once a month, or I know maybe, I guess this December I would post like maybe a birthday post because my birthday's 3 days away. But
Oh, right.
yeah. And then maybe I'll do like a New Year's post where it's like, oh, everything that happened in 2025 and do like one big photo collage. But
Yeah. That's
yeah,
cool.
I
Yeah.
don't
No,
know.
yeah. You can do whatever you want on your birthday. So
Yeah.
you're going to be, are you going to be 19 or 20?
I'm gonna be 20.
Oh, wow. You're old hat now. You got it all figured out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out of my teens.
Yeah. So let's back up then. Let's talk a little bit about you. So right now, I mean, the thing that interested me about you and wanted you to come on my podcast was I love it when people take risks on their dreams. And like too many people just kind of live, you might have heard this something of fair, like they live lives of quiet desperation where they're always doing everything safe. I have a lot of friends, you know, when you get to be my age, I'm 44 years old, and when you get to be my age, you look at a lot of different people, and kind of it's interesting what happens. You know, you just got out of high school a couple of years ago. You'll be fascinated when you're in your 40s where everybody ends up, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually shocking a lot of the times where people end up, who kind of did it and who didn't. And you know, it's interesting because I have tended to just go and do the things that I want to do and see how it comes up. Some of them came out exactly as I planned, and some of them came out definitely not. But a lot of my friends regret not taking risks, playing it safe, and you're definitely not playing it safe. So, which this is the perfect time to do that, dude. I mean, like that's the thing. Like when you're 18 years old and you have literally no responsibilities, you're not married, you don't have any kids, you don't have, you know, a career to speak of or necessarily. This is the time to take the shot and try to make it all work, because one day you're going to get bogged down. You're going to get, you know, you're going to get a significant other, and you're going to try to have some kids, and you're going to do all these things. You're going to have all these responsibilities that are going to be like, oh, I can't take a risk on this acting gig because I got to support all these hanger-ons, right?
Yeah.
And so tell me, let's start back. When did you're in acting school? What school are you in?
I'm in PCPA, which is in like Central California. It's kind of, yeah, I would say Central Coast. So it's a good 2 hours away from LA, but whenever I do book gigs, I always make the drive and I do whatever I can down there when I have the chance.
Right. So so you're in the school. When was it that you made the decision that you were definitely going to make this pursuit?
So I was very fortunate and very lucky. So when I graduated high school, I had always the intention of doing a computer science and theater arts, like double major, because theater was something really important in my life, but I knew it was very risky and like financially wasn't the best major to go into. So then I was like, okay, at least I have the computer science because I'm really good with technology. I've already learned some coding with my friends through like different fun websites. So I was like, I'll just do both. But then when I got to my community college, they're like, oh, FAFSA only covers one of them. It's either computer science or theater arts. And I just remember just like sitting down with my family and we're talking about like what we're gonna do, like what's the plan. And then I ultimately picked the safe route. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do computer science and just take all these like math courses, which I didn't mind. I like math, but some of the computer science courses were kind of just boring because it was either I already knew it or they were going at such a slow speed. I'm like, why are we still on like binary codes, like all these ones and zeros? I felt very disinterested and I wasn't having a great first semester at college. But then around it would probably been, I want to say August or October. My mom is on like the official Playbill website and she sees that they do casting calls in Sacramento and they're doing this Polar Express, the live experience through Warner Brothers. And she was like, oh, you should just go and audition for fun. And, and I was just sitting there like, oh, I do not know any acting because I haven't been trained yet. The only experience I had was with Austin and Virtus. So we did the musicals. And I remember sitting outside the audition room and there's like two other people and they're like reading their lines. So it was reminding me of like La La Land where
Hmm.
Mia sitting out there reading her
Right.
lines. Except we didn't have any lines. In fact, we had a dance audition. So I was sitting there, but I remember there was this one girl who was practicing the dance back and forth. But we walk, or at least I walked in. There's the dance coordinator, the stage manager. There's like 2 directors. I think that was it. I want to say, yeah, there's like 4 or 5 people. And they start off instantly with the dance number. And the song ends, and I'm still dancing. So I clearly was offbeat, off tempo, did it horribly. And I just remember them going, well, we'll move on to the second part of the audition. But yeah, then they had this improv scene because with this show, you're on a moving train. And at one point, there's a lot of parts to just improv because there's not much for you to do until the next section of like the show begins. So they wanted to test me on my improv to see what I would come up with while like there was this little intermissions between the show. And they had the stage manager pretend to be like a child that was kind of rebellious or
Mm.
not the best. So they're like just being a child, pretending to be this 22-year-old was like on their knees being a child. And I was like, oh, what do you want for Christmas? And they're like, oh, I want a knife so I can stab other kids. And I was like, oh, let's take you to
It was Lincoln, right? It was one of my kids.
Yeah. I just kind of went, I didn't know kids would say this during a show with their parents, but I was like, oh, let's take you to the cooking. Maybe you could cut up some tomatoes. And I remember even during that part, I ran into a support beam that was in that audition room and I fell on my butt. And of course, the casting directors and everyone that was there started laughing. And they're like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was laughing too. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm perfectly
good shit.
fine. But I no joke, left that audition and I wished the next person luck. And I said, do not worry, you're gonna get the part. Like I did miserably. You're gonna do way better than I did. And then 2 weeks later, I get a basically an offer letter, and it's like all these contracts I needed to sign and like my schedule of which shows I would be doing. And then I had like my first like meeting and I had to get like train certification, like this kind of train safety rules, like how to be on a operating train and keeping the public safe. And then also like just acting training, like, oh, this is what you can say, this is what you cannot say. But just that whole entire process of being on that set and being my first set with such like a big kind of production was like very eye-opening and like it made me realize like, oh, this is what I want to do, even if it risks like my financial or kind of like my living situation. But it was what was bringing me the most happiness, and all the people around me during that time, all my co-stars who've been in the industry for a while were so supportive and like told me what I needed to do to become successful. And that's how I ended up at the school I'm at today. So yeah, I don't know. I think as uh, as soon as I got that job, that's when I switched my degree. I switched from computer science at literally the week of finals. I switch it, which I still took the finals for the other classes. I was still gonna get those credits.
Right.
Um, I during that week I met with the counselor and I was like, oh, I'm gonna switch my major to theater arts. And then we had to create this whole new plan and this whole new like workshop of like, oh, these are gonna be the classes you take. And I ended up taking my spring semester at Sierra College with acting, and then eventually found out I got into this conservatory program, and then switched schools from there, and then got to transfer some credits.
That's awesome, man. So, and that's, I can tell you, it's interesting. Just again, I find myself to be in a little bit of a transition period, and I got to tell you, I know your parent, I know your mom. Okay, we know each other just because you and Austin grew up together,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you kids understand how much we as parents worry about you. You know what I mean? Like even like, dude, okay, I'm not your parent, obviously, but I've seen you grow up, you and Dom and Ty and like all these boys who came over and hung out at the house all the time. I
Mhm.
remember tying you up and throwing you in the back of the truck for your
Yeah.
birthday, all that stuff, and like, we all like this whole community, you know, we all worry about all you people, all you boys and even the girls who've come through. And it always makes me so proud when you guys take a shot because like if you think about it, I mean, so this is what I've told Austin because Austin wants to at least at one point he wanted to be a rock star, right? And that was his thing. And he sings like an angel. He's 6'3", blonde hair, blue eyed,
Yep.
sings like an angel, plays the guitar. He's gonna be fine. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
But I remember telling him because he was kind of bouncing back and forth about what he wants to do. I wanted to be when I was your guys' age. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. That was what I wanted to do. I didn't even think I was going to go to college because I was like, why would I do that? I'm just going to go to wrestling school and I'm going to tour the world with the WWE. And I trained and I did all that. And then I went on a mission and I came back and I realized that kind of wasn't the life I necessarily wanted, but stayed in it. And so, if you look at my original dream of, I thought I want to one day headline WrestleMania and wrestle in front of, however many people are at WrestleMania. That's my dream. That never happened. So some people might look at that and go, well, you failed. I don't think so at all because I've got so many friends from being involved in pro wrestling and I've got so many cool stories that now, the kids get to hear about the time, I got hit in the head with a trash can and my head busted open, or they get to hear about how I toured with, Impact Wrestling and got to, hang out with Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy and these guys, they get to hear all that stuff. The stories are worth the time, even though I didn't necessarily make it all the way where I want to go. So even if you don't make it, you're going to have so many cool experiences that nobody else you're going to be around is going to have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So now, but the other thing is somebody makes it. Why can't it be you? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so now there's lots of people would have the experience that you had. Right. They would have the experience of going and doing kind of the local production and having fun and making a little bit of money. But then when it came time to actually taking the leap, they kind of back up and again, kind of go the safe route. And I've known a lot of people do that. What got you? Is there something about you that you think that you're driven enough to do that? Or was there something that happened that made you take that leap?
I just know, like, since, like, a young age, I've always wanted to do acting because it was like, "Oh, it's this pretend world, and it's this make-believe story, and you get to, like, do all these cool experiences," and when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, I always wanted to be in a Marvel movie," because I thought it would've been so cool to, like, fight the aliens that invaded New York or
Right.
do whatever, have superpowers, that would've been cool. But, like, that dream kinda faded because I was playing the trumpet a lot, so it seemed like, oh, maybe music was gonna be more of an inspiration than acting, and it still is. I love music, and I still play the trumpet time to time, but I knew, like, acting was more my thing, like, was more focused towards, like, movies and all this stage plays, and I just thought it was so interesting, like, that whole entire concept. So, yeah, after I booked this first job, everyone was like, "Oh, you need to get an agent, and you need to do these college products and these community play products," because well, I only had 1 credit to my name, so I was, like, barely anybody. But, yeah, I realized, because I got a Backstage account, and basically what that whole entire website is where you become your own agent and your own manager, and you submit auditions for yourself, and then instead of a different company or a different agent taking profits from what you make, you get to keep all of it, which is really nice. But, yeah, I realized, like, oh, I got myself a Backstage account. I had all these new friends that were in that community. They were all supportive, they were all telling me what to do, and then I realized, like, one of my greatest and, like, biggest mentors I had was, Karen Fox, and she was the one who helped me get my Backstage account. She was the one that helped me get my headshots and my resume, And then she was directing a show all the way in Winters, which is about an hour and a half drive away from where I'm at right now. So I was driving back and forth to Winters maybe 2, 3 times a week. And then, yeah, 3 times, especially when shows were happening because there was a show every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I believe. But yeah, I realized, oh, if I'm doing all this effort just to do productions all the way out here, and that show didn't even pay me. I was just doing it because I wanted to be around Karen because she brought me so much joy. And I was like, I think this is the point where I was like, oh, I need to up
Mhm.
my education. And it's funny because I've only been at the school for a semester, but I'm looking back at everything I've done in the past, and I'm like, "Oh, I could have done that so much better if I've known, like, what it
Yeah.
means to be an actor and, like, all
Yeah.
this education on, like, what you could do when reading a script, like, how to score a script, how to create a character bio, how to do 4 list, and all these tools that I now have that would help me build to be a great, like, actor and a character actor that I wish I had before, but I was
Yeah,
but
but
I guess I'm trying to say, yeah,
you can't do that because the thing
yeah,
is that like, I'm very religious and I believe that everything happens for a reason. And there's a reason why it
mhm,
didn't happen back then. You're gonna find again, hindsight is 2020, but I look back at all the things that happened and all the decisions I made and looking back at even just things like investing money in things or different things where you go, man, I wish I would have known that earlier, but you
yeah,
didn't, right? You didn't. And I remember one time I had a big issue. I've told the story a bunch of times where I bought a house that literally, if you look back in history, it was literally the worst time in the history of America to buy a house. And I bought it and I took a major bath on that. And I, of course, I'm
mhm,
like, could have done without that, right? Wish I wouldn't done that. That was a massive loss. Took a long time to bury out of it. But you know what? That
mhm,
changed the way I looked at money to where now I never put myself in a financial situation like that again. Without that failure, I would have never, I wouldn't have the relationship with money that I have now. Same thing with you. Like maybe you muddled through a few things and it didn't really work out, but that's what shapes you into doing these other things. Everything is a beautiful mess of a puzzle that creates Edward Stack. You know what I mean? And so you can't do that. You now you've got it, right? Now you've got the tools and you've got it
yeah,
younger than a lot of people because you're only 19 and you've got all this stuff. That's great. Yeah.
yeah, no, I noticed, like, I've had so many, like, great opportunities, and I've been so fortunate to be given the opportunities that I have been given at such a young age. Because I have, at the house I'm currently staying at, I'm currently home for Christmas, so this isn't my room anymore, but, at the house I'm currently staying at, I have this whole entire movie poster wall, and one of the posters, I guess you could say, on it is my resume, and it's just, like, all my credits I've been able to do so far, and it's, like, how fortunate I am to be a part of all those projects, and I just remember, like, there's been a couple of those projects where they paid me, like, super, super low amounts, where it ended up costing me more money to go do the project than actually, like, get paid for it, because the one I'm thinking about is Aeropostale. They were like, "Oh, you need to be in San Francisco for 2 days, and
Mm,
you have to be on this set for, like, 12 hours for both days." And then I ended up having to, like, get a hostel and to pay for my food, and pay for my gas, and then it kinda came around even at the end of the
right.
day. Plus, I got a bunch of free clothes. They let me keep everything that I wore, which was really nice.
Nice. Right.
But, like, knowing that, like, how much I was striving for those opportunities, and then plus the school that I'm currently at now, I auditioned late, so they already had all their students, um, kind of lined up. They already had, like, the student roster, and when I auditioned, they said kind of at the end of it, like, "Oh, we would really like you. We would want you to come join us. The only thing is we've already sent out the letters, so we would love you to re-audition next year," because they kind of assumed like, "Oh, maybe there's not really a good chance you're gonna get it this year," because they assume like everyone that they send out is gonna accept that letter.
Mm,
But I was very fortunate where I guess 1 or 2 students kind of dropped the letter because they either found a different source or a different future, or they were offered better opportunities, and then I was offered this opportunity, which I'm so grateful for because I was like never expecting to go to that school, and I was not financially prepared to go to that school either. Like,
Yeah.
I got that letter and I looked at my account and I was like, "Ooh, can
Yeah.
barely afford 1 month of rent."
Yeah, but you know what though? The thing is this is something that I used to say when I was selling cell phones to people. You know, we were commissioned salespeople, and then AT&T started getting greedy and started changing the way that we can make money. And I just told them, I was like, creative people will find a way, right? And that's the thing. Like when you're driven and you want it, like you'll find a way, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to point out, what came to mind when you were talking about, yeah, you know, there's a couple of these opportunities, I kind of lost money on them, but you never know when one of those opportunities are going to turn into another one. I mean, I I remember a couple of times, you know, my law career where I've taken a case, and you know, I'm now, you know, I'm 13 years in, I'm a partner at the law firm, so I have an associate that works for me and all these different things. So sometimes I'll take these cases, not knowing how big they're going to be, and some of the other partners will be like, "Why are you taking those small cases?" Well, it's because I remember one time I took a case that was worth 15 grand. You know, my fee on that was like $4,500 for a ton of work. I mean, a ton of work. If you look at between hours, I probably maybe $10 an hour on how much work it was to
Oh,
get that
wow.
money. I mean, between me and my team, right? But then that person referred me a case that was worth $3.5 million, right? I mean, so it's like, you know, and that's the point, right? Is that like for all you know, you're going to go to one of those things that is, you know, not a money maker, but it's a
Mhm.
cool opportunity, and someone's going to see you and remember you. That will result in another opportunity. Plus, for you right now, I mean, I can only equate this to like pro wrestling, okay, because it's
Mhm.
performative. Sometimes you just need to get the reps. You know,
Yeah.
you know, you just need to get in there and you just need to do it. It's just like anything else. It's just like sports or weightlifting or whatever. You just have to get in there and do it enough times that it becomes second nature. So it's still, even though it may not have been financially lucrative, it's still valuable, right? It's
Yeah.
still valuable for you to be able to have that credit. How long before you get like your SAG card and all that stuff?
Oh, it's funny because I haven't even looked that up. I know a lot of rules and regulations have been changing, mainly because of, like, the whole pandemic, and then also, again, this, like, Warner Brothers stuff where studios are, like, changing
Mhm.
all these rules about, like, how long it's gonna be in a theater before it goes to streaming and all of that, but from what I was told from, like, a couple of my teachers that I'm already SAG eligible, but
Mm,
I shouldn't join just quite yet because when you become a union member, you can't do, non-union jobs,
mm,
and I've noticed that, because one of my, jobs I recently did was getting to promote the new Jaws exhibit at the Academy Museum,
mm,
and that was one of the coolest jobs I ever worked for because everyone that was the behind the stage, like working the cameras, the directors, all those people, they worked at the Oscars. And like the guy who was filming me, he was like, "Oh yeah, I worked the camera at the Oscars." And I was like, "Oh, this is an amazing
yeah,
opportunity because I love the Oscars. I watch it all the time." But at that job, b kind of every production, you either get sent, like, the contracts before or you get it the day of when you arrive to that set. And on the contract, there was, like, 3 or 4 of the actors that were there, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I could do this anymore." Because when I auditioned, it said it was gonna be, stock footage only, where it was just, like, a single frame or it's just, like, a photo of them.
mhm.
But then what it ended up being is, like, this filmed advertisement of, like, "Oh, come to the Academy Museum." And they're kind of like, "Oh, I can't be filmed because that would violate my union status."
Mm.
So I was like, "Ooh," now I'm starting to see where if I get this status, like,
It's gonna
it might
affect
hurt
your
me
ability.
because
Yeah, it's gonna
it hurt
affect you to get
them,
the
yeah.
reps. Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna get as many opportunities. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That's interesting. So now so, uh, when you told your parents that you were gonna do this, what was the reaction?
I love my mom's reaction the most because I always think she's my biggest supporter, but she's also like my number one hater in a sense because she loves that I'm taking this opportunity and she knows that I've been working so hard because like I said, like when I got accepted to the school, I had like 1 month worth of rent. So then I ended up getting 3 jobs. And then she saw how determined and focused I was and how I was working my whole summer just to go to that school. So she kind of was like, okay, he's not playing around. I think she had that moment of realization, like he's very serious about this being a future. But then, like you said earlier, because she is my parent, she worries for me and she really does care about me. And there's been a couple conversations. She's like, so what if it doesn't work out? She knows she's always asking me like my plan B and like what I will do if
No plan Bs.
acting doesn't
No plan Bs.
happen. Yeah.
Can't have a plan B yet. Can't do that.
And to be honest, I don't have a plan B exactly yet, but it's also I'm still at school. I still have another year and a half of this training. And what we're fortunate of getting at this training, I believe, is like we get to audition for agents and nearby theaters around that area. But then at the same time, when I was in high school and even now, I was just working at like an ice cream parlor. I was working at fast food, or I'm currently working at a retail store 1 day a week because we only get 1 day off of school, basically.
Right.
So,
right.
you know, I'll just get a normal day job. And as long as I'm doing acting something, I feel like I will be happy in my future.
You're so young and you got plenty of time to figure it out. Like you don't want a plan B right now, because the thing is my, like when I went through law school, I didn't have a plan B. It was just law school. I like there was nothing else I was going to do, period, the end. And because if I would have had a plan B, I for sure would have quit. Like it was so hard. Going through law school was so hard. Like everyone talks about the loans, like how expensive it is. I am grateful those loans were there because those loans kept me in school. Because I was like, how am I going to pay these back? Right? If I don't do this thing, I have to be a lawyer. Otherwise, I can't afford these loans. Right? I mean, and so, yeah, dude, you don't want a plan B, because if you have a plan B, then when the time gets tough, when you're, sitting there and you haven't gotten a job in a couple of weeks and you don't have any money and you're catering or you're doing whatever, trying to make ends meet, and you're starving, you're sleeping in your car in between things, like, you'll finally go, screw this, I'm going home and I'm going to go become a computer science guy, then that's going to be, then you're going to be my age. You're going to be like, man, if I just hung on a little bit longer, because it's those people, my view of all of this is that success and failure, like there's a fine line between it. And that line is right at that place where everyone would understand why you quit, but you don't. Like that's the line between the people who are successful and fail. The people who end up failing are the ones who quit when everyone said, yeah, totally makes sense. You should. It was crazy. It's crazy what you were doing. You know what I mean? But the ones who go, no, I am crazy. I'm a psychopath and I'm going to do this. Right. Like those are the ones who go on and do it. And they're the ones who become successful. And so, and who cares? You know what? Like the other thing that's going to be great about this experience is you're going to realize that you can do hard things, and there are so many people who like go through this whole life being just afraid of being uncomfortable, being avoidant of being uncomfortable. And just, you should put yourself in as many not like uncomfortable situations, but you know what I mean? Like you should make yourself do hard things a lot, just so you can prove you can do them. You know what I mean? And this is one of them. I mean, going down there, being by yourself at 19 years old, living in a place far away from everybody, trying to make ends meet, not having a ton of money. Like this is the stuff that, documentaries are made of. Right. You know what I mean? Because we always, I get a lot of solace of telling my kids, I hope that they look at, the path I've taken and the hard things that I've done, and it gives them some inspiration to say, okay, I could do it. He's because I'm nobody special, but I did a lot of really cool things, just never quitting. And so, so yeah, man, I mean, I think it's awesome that you're doing it. So if you had a choice, I know, like, for example, Lexi, my daughter, I think if she could be any type of actor in the world, she would just want to be on Broadway, that's
Mm.
just like she's a musical theater psychopath. Like she will go to every musical theater performance ever, no matter how terrible.
Mm.
And so do you have one? Like, are you TV, movies, Broadway, or just whatever?
I don't know. I've been really focused on, like, TV and television, and that was mainly because that's what most of my acting work was first in. It was actually, like, doing commercials, which some people call that, like, not acting because, like, the director just says, "Okay, just smile and be in the background."
Right.
But, I always just had, like, a fascination with, like, the camera work and, like, oh, how, like, they did a transition or how, like, an actor had to do this or do that. But it's funny because the school I'm going to right now, it's very heavily, like, Broadway and stage focused,
Mm.
and they've been kinda convincing me a little bit where I was like, "Ooh, I could see, like, stage being a possible future." And with the stage plays I have done, I've had, like, so much fun being
Sure.
on those sets. I think at first, like, when I first became an actor, I was so happy about the product, or I was so focused on, like, what the product was gonna be, like, "Oh, I wouldn't be happy until the commercial came out or until, like, whatever I did was out to the public." But now I'm starting to realize, "Oh, I really like the rehearsals, like, all the behind the scenes, all the things that takes me to where it then becomes that product, where other people get to see the final thing I came up with."
Yeah, that's awesome. I did when I was your age, I did a couple of little things. So the first thing was I remember when I was doing wrestling, we it was I went to a wrestling training school, and it closed down after a couple months. So I just started training people in my backyard, like just trying to keep it up. And people started catching on and coming to the backyard, and it became like a backyard wrestling promotion. Like people, like hundreds of people would come and watch us wrestle on a Saturday night. And then all of a sudden, like the newspaper and TV and all these different people got a hold of it. And so then after that, I get a call from this guy named Bob Boris or something like, I can't remember his name, but he called me and he was like, I'm making a movie called Backyard Dogs about backyard wrestling, and we want to film you guys wrestling or buy your footage to
Mhm.
use in the movie. And I was like, you can't be serious. And he's like, I'm dead serious. And so he was talking to me, and he was like, I told him I was 6'7", I was 275 at the time. And he was like, well, why don't you come down here and read for some parts? But I was going on my mission. So he paid me for the footage that he did have, and I didn't come down and do it. But when I came back from my mission, my parents had a copy of Backyard Dogs. It was a terrible movie. It had the Black Power Rangers in it. It was so bad. It was a bad, bad, bad movie. And all my wrestling fans, they've all seen it and they love it. They think it's hilarious. But then the other one was I did a commercial. I was 22, and a friend of mine worked for KCRA, and they did a commercial for like Q58 or wherever. They were doing Smallville like reruns, so they wanted to do this thing, and I had no idea what they were going to do. Right? He just asked me if I wanted to come help, and I was like, sure. And so I come in there, and I'm like supposed to be this husband running home to his wife so we could sit down and watch Smallville together. And they didn't
Oh.
tell, and they were like, all right, I want you to look here. They didn't tell me anything that was going to be
Yep.
going on, right? So I just go, okay. And so I looked there, and then I saw the commercial one time. They had lasers shooting out of my eyes like Superman. They had like all this stuff. And it was like, but it was like 2003, 2002. So like the CGI was terrible, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, I hope no one ever sees this. And I never saw it again. I saw it one time. Some people came to me and said they saw it, but I was like, I am not doing any more of these commercials ever again, because I just had no idea what was going on. Oh gosh, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, is that what it's like there, or was it just this cheesy like little local thing? Did they just like not tell you what's going on, or?
It's weird because, like, every set is so different because I've had the chance to work on, like, big professional sets where it's, like, going nationwide, and then there's, like, smaller sets I've worked on where it's a student film and it's only going out to, like, their friends and family. But I just remember, like, there's been, yeah, a couple of, like, products where I remember there was this one where it was for this, Sacramento County. It was all about how, their whole entire, message and their program was how to prevent underage children, so people under 21, from getting their hands on just different substances. And I just remember I did a commercial for that, or I did like one of their little commercial, I guess. But it was played all throughout the theaters in Sacramento, like right before movies were starting. They were playing that commercial. And the first time it was really cool. Like I was like, whoa, like I'm on the big screen. Like I just was right before like one of the Avengers movies. Like that was sick. But then they kept playing it over and over again. And it got to a point where I was like, oh, the sun was directly in my eyes, and it looks like maybe I was high during filming that commercial. Like they should probably like take it down. But at the same time, it's just like me being my worst self-critic. Like I'm being so critical about myself, and it's like at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, there has been a couple products where I've like seen it, and I'm like, oh, that was an interesting choice, or like when I'm acting, I didn't picture it that way. And it's not the actor's job to picture it that way, because then at that point we're kind of becoming the director.
Sure.
We're not really in the scene anymore, and now we're focusing on like the outside
Sure.
like interpretation of it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I hate watching myself on you. Like sometimes when I go wrestle, it'll end up on YouTube or whatever, and I just absolutely hate watching that. Like I can't stand watching myself do that stuff. It just, because I just am too critical. You know, I look at things, and I was like, could have done that better. You know, could have had a better mannerism. Could have sold that better. You know what I mean? Just the self-criticism is tough, but that's also how you learn, right? Like you watch it and you look at your brutal stuff. I bet even now you look back at things you did when you were, just 6-8 months ago, and you're like, I could have done that so much better now. Yeah. That's I remember I recently went back and read a deposition from like my first or second year of practice, and I was appalled. I was like, oh my gosh, why did anyone ever let me be a lawyer? Oh, that was so bad. So yeah, I mean, but that's again getting those reps, right? Doing those things and stuff like that. So now, are you still are you more open then to just wherever you land, or are you still trying to go towards TV and film?
Yeah, I think I am a little bit more open to wherever I land, wherever it takes me. I'm starting to like realize that I think a lot of it in the beginning was like, oh, I want to be an actor for like the fame and like the Hollywood, and like because you hear all these big movie stars making millions of dollars for doing 2 months of work, or being honest, doing whatever. And I was like, oh, like this sounds like my life. This sounds like my dream. But now I'm starting to realize, oh, like especially at this school, like acting isn't about like getting to that point. It's about telling the stories of other people's shoes. And it's funny because you mentioned it earlier, like the biggest thing they say at my school is, are you unsafe or are you uncomfortable? Because a lot of people are like, oh, this is a lot, like, oh, this is really scary. And it's like, no, you're not unsafe. You're just uncomfortable because you haven't worked this hard before, or you haven't done something like this. Because like the scene I was just given was from a play called The Children's Hour, and it's this breakup scene, and I'm supposed to be like yelling at my wife and like confront her about all of these rumors and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is nothing I've done before, because everything in the past is like, look happy, you're at a museum, or you're wearing your favorite clothes, you're at a high school. Or there was like one where it was like, you're at an office building, you're doing work, so all you're doing is just looking down at your files, you're just minding your own business. So now it's like taking it to an extreme where it's like, oh, there's high risks and high rewards. Like you're yelling at your wife, but you're not yelling. And I had to like process this. You're not yelling at her because you're mad, or you're not yelling at her because you're like angry at her in any way. You're yelling at her because you want her to fight for the love between them. And you want her to say kind of like what the character wants them to do in a way, but you don't want to be super forceful and like over controlling. And yeah, this school really opened my eyes. It's like making me see acting in a whole new way, in a whole new
Yeah,
image.
plus all legit, like, this is I mean, man, when you hear about all the crazy stuff that's going on in Hollywood and all that, I mean, you're hearing, like,
Oh my
Diddy
god.
parties and islands and, like, all these things, it's like, "Oh, man, I don't wanna be anywhere near that." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, that's crazy because you just sit there and, this is another I was having this conversation, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but I was like, everybody thinks they're gonna be the one person that doesn't, partake or whatever, but man, uh, peer pressure is tough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you get into one of those situations, like it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, I always am impressed with people like Daniel Day-Lewis who they have no interest in being in Hollywood. They just love to act. You know what I
Yes.
mean? He goes away, and then when there's a cool party he wants to do, he comes in and he rocks it, and then he doesn't come back until
Yep.
he finds another one, and that's just so impressive.
Yep.
Um,
He just came back for, I think, Anemone. I think that was the name of the movie. But yeah, he just came back and I was like, "Oh, here he is out of
yeah,
nowhere."
yeah,
Yep.
and that's just I have such respect for actors who they come in or like Rick Moranis who just decided he's like I'm retiring because my kids need me, and then
Mhm.
not as interested in being famous and all that stuff because the thing that's interesting about that too is I've learned a lot over the last 10-15 years about you think that all this external validation is going to do it for you and you're going to have some peace and it just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter how much people admire you if you've got like a hole in your soul, it's just not going to fill it. You know what I mean? You got to find that within and be at peace with yourself, and that's plus also if you're going to the other thing that's interesting is like I said, I believe in God and I believe the universe, whatever you want to call it, puts you in a direction like that you probably never expected. Uh,
Mhm.
I never thought I would be a personal injury attorney. Never in a million years. I thought I would be a prosecutor somewhere just putting bad guys in jail. And it just so happened that, I heard someone once say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you think's going to happen. Right. And and
Mhm.
I landed this job just because it was the only one who would hire me. And now I'm, 16 years later, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else, and it's like I would have never expected that going into law school that I would
Mhm.
have a passion for personal injury, but yet here I am. Right. And that's just what's so interesting. So for all you might think I'm going to be a film and TV actor and that's what I'm going to do. And then
Mhm.
you land on Broadway somewhere and you go, man,
Yep.
I have such a passion for this, or you may land, you may be the, one like what's her name from Progressive, you could,
I would love that. That would be so cool to be
yeah,
Flo, yeah.
yeah, Flo from Progressive, and just
Yeah,
you're that's your person, and you just make a ton of money just
yeah,
doing commercials for Progressive for the rest of your life, and like, I mean, I mean, you never know where it's going to go, but what I think you'll probably find is one day you'll look back and go, man, that happened exactly the way it was supposed to, right?
yeah.
So,
It's
so
funny
yeah,
because, like, even now, like, looking back a year, 2 years ago, like, right when I got out of high school, and because even in high school, I remember, like, sophomore year, we went to, like, 2 different agencies, and we were like, "Oh, like, we need to get an agent at a young age," because I had to have, like, credits to my name by the time I turned 18 because they don't
mm,
hire people after 18 that don't have anything on their resume. But then, like, all these agencies were like, "Oh, yeah, we'll take you, but you have to give us $15,000 first," which, by the way, that's not how they run. They take a portion of what you make, not you don't pay them up front unless it's for, like, headshots or something.
right.
But, yeah, I never saw myself, getting to do these advertisements and commercials or even, like I said, being on the theater screen just, like, right before a movie. Like, even that was, like, very eye-opening, like, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, like, this is a possibility," and I think that's what's been striving me to keep it up and keep it going and take every opportunity I'm given because, like, everything is just so cool to me, like, "Oh, I did this," like, it's out there and people are seeing it, and it's funny because I was gonna mention this earlier, when I moved from Sacramento down to where I live now, um, for 2 to 3 weeks, I was still getting messages through my backstage like, oh, I remember one was like, oh, we heard that you worked with these other people, and we would love for you to come do like I think it was like a PG and E commercial or something. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I moved down here and I have class during that time because my school was very focused on like
Yeah,
being there because you're not only being there for yourself, but you're being there for the other people in your scenes and
sure.
being there for their education. So I felt so bad. I was like, "Oh no, like I'm so sorry. I just moved away."
Yeah, yeah. But that's the thing though. You know what? Like yeah, maybe you missed out on a couple opportunities, but these are bigger opportunities. You gotta kind of pick where you're going.
Yeah.
And I think you're in a good spot. I mean, this is why I wanted to have you on, was because what would be so there's some kids coming up that maybe somebody from John Adams listening to this at some point,
Mhm.
and they're going, huh, I'm thinking about doing this or that. Um, yeah, but they're nervous, or maybe they're not getting the support from family, or they're looking at the finances and going, I don't know. What is your message for people who are looking at those things?
One of the quotes that I was told recently is like, "Hustle beats talent," which is like I don't know, I've been thinking about that quote every day since I've heard it, and I think it's so true, especially from where I am today, is because, like, yeah, I'm just now kind of going to school to learn about the talent part, like, how to be talented in acting, but before that, I got that Backstage account, and I was just auditioning for every single thing, like, at one point, I just stopped reading, like, the character bios, I just sent my name, I sent my resume, I sent my headshot, I sent my little, video reel with a monologue and introducing myself, and then I just took every opportunity that came my way, and I think just I was so fortunate because I was already in that mindset before I even learned about that quote. So, even now, being in this school, I'm starting to learn, like, oh, having a huge resume isn't everything, because you even see it in today's footage, like, there's a big name star in this movie, but then they have, like, a terrible acting job, or it's, like, a very big celebrity, but they're only in the movie because 'cause they're TikTok famous, and they don't have that acting education, and that's why I'm learning it's so important to be at the school where I am today is because I was just kind of freestyling before, going to the school, like, I was it's funny because now I know the correct terms of what I was doing, like, I was
Mhm.
using they call this thing called transference, where you use, like, an outside memory or emotion, and you just apply it to the scene you're kind of
Mhm.
in, and I was like, "Oh, I was kinda doing those things before going to the school, I just never knew what to call them." And I never was able to exactly, like, pinpoint what I was doing and write it down, and that's why I'm very fortunate to be going, again, to the school, and I'm learning all these things, and I'm really working hard, and I'm really working on making this dream of mine possible, because, again, 2 years ago, when I graduated from high school and I said, "Oh, I wanna be a famous movie actor," yeah, my I would've been like, the chances are very extremely low." And I think I just got lucky where my mom said, "Hey, you should do this one audition for this one stage." And then from there, it has progressed me so far. And it was just me working every day and me trying to make my dream possible because I know there's a lot of people that sit around and kind of wait for it to kind of fall in their lap. I keep hearing like the one day I'll do it or day one. And
Yeah.
I think I switched back a little bit where I'm like, "Oh, I should start auditioning for this," and I'm like, "Ooh, but I'm in school," and I know, like, even now, there's still a little bit of fear that rises from me about, like, "Oh, future," or, "Oh, I passed that one opportunity," but I think what keeps me going is striving that, "Oh, a year ago from today, I was not in the same position,
Yeah.
and I know there's nothing for me to do except grow."
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite quotes, I mean, I'm a big Rocky fan. And one of my favorite quotes comes from Rocky 3 when when Apollo Creed is trying to train Rocky and Rocky's not really doing so much, and he says there is no tomorrow, right? And that's so true. I know so many people who, maybe they're on a weight loss journey, or they're going to get into the gym and they're like, oh, I'm going to do it New Year's Day resolutions. That's when I'm going to do it. I'm like, no, man, you do it now. If you're serious, you'd do it right now. You would throw away the candy right now. Now, of course, I love candy, so this is hypocritical of me completely. But I mean, like, but the point is that I recently was asked to come and speak at John Adams, like at the entrepreneurs class by Mr. Conklin. Yeah. And I went in there and they were asking me, they're like, well, how are you successful in all these different things? And I kind of told them, I was like, the podcast came up too. And I just was like, I don't know. I just got tired of talking about doing a podcast and just said, whatever, I'll just do a podcast. I'll figure it out on the way, and that's where it's morphed into this. I mean, there comes a time where, you just have to do it. Like, you could talk about it. You could read all the books about it. You can watch all the YouTube shorts about it. You can do all those things and go, okay, if I do this, I do that. I'm planning. No, man, you can't. Just start. And sure, you're going to screw up a bunch of times, whatever. You'll figure it out on the way. You just got to do it. And, that's so, yeah, man. I mean, and the other thing is that I think is important is you just can't listen to any of those negative people. Like, you can't listen to those people who are like, oh man, that's going to be real tough, Edward. Like, you're not going to have, why are you going to do that? I remember when I was going through law school, I told my best friend I wanted to go to law school, and he told me he'd bet everything he owned I wouldn't make it. And the thing that was so interesting about that was, as I was going through all that, he did a degree as well, and he had finished way before me, because law school is an eternity and it's brutal. But anyway, he had gotten done, and so he was making a bunch of money, and I still wasn't. And I would look at that and I'd be like, man, he was eating steak dinners while I was eating top ramen. You know what I mean? It was rough. And so now when I talk to people, I tell them, I'm like, my 20s and my early 30s, unbearable. They were just work. I was tunnel vision, work. Man, great 40s. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing great in the 40s, and I'm living a life now that very few people get to live, And so putting in that work and hustling, and that was the other thing you said that I think I would echo. And that is, I have the opportunity to hire people all the time. I hire new attorneys. I hire law clerks and secretaries. And if they put the person who works the hardest in front of me and the smartest person in front of me, I would pick the hardest worker every single time. Yep. Because the smartest person, it doesn't mean anything if they don't apply themselves. I don't know how many talented people I've seen that have completely wasted their talent because they were not willing to put in the extra effort. So, I mean, there is something to be said. Like, I tell people all the time about myself. If I took an IQ test today, I am probably average intelligence. Like, I've never been an A student. No one picked me first for anything. Nothing. I mean, like, nobody thought I was going to end up anything. You know how many times I heard who would have thought as I was going through, and I would just be like, I would have thought. What are you talking about? Who would have thought? Right. And so, you're just one win away from everyone pretending like they always believed in you. You know what I mean? So, you'll be amazed, Edward. You watch, because I do believe you're going to do really well. You're going to do really well in this field. And when you do, everyone is going to come out of the woodwork and be like, I always knew Edward was going to make it. Yeah. And you're going to roll your eyes, because it's all of those people who right now are being like, Edward's being so dumb. He's down there doing this acting thing, and I'm doing whatever else. One day they're going to come around and they're going to say that stuff, and you're just going to have to laugh to yourself. Remember that, you're the one who bet on yourself, not any of them.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, I'm thinking about even now where I got like random Instagram messages from people who I completely don't know because my account is public. So I remember this one guy, and he was just like, "Hey, I noticed you post this on your story," because, the stories delete after 24 hours.
Mhm.
There He was just texting me, and he's like, "This is really funny. If I were you, I would just start making reels. I think you have, like, a really good personality, and you just make people laugh." And, again, I had no idea who this guy was, but I was just like that made my whole entire day because it's just this random stranger who, in a sense, like, believed in me,
Yeah.
and that just encouraged me. And then it's funny because 'cause I'm looking at, like, people I graduated with or a couple people that are, like, who've known me for a while, and they're kind of like, "Oh, do you have anything else in mind? Like, what if it doesn't work out?" Which I know at the end of the day, most of them want the best for me, but at the same time, I know they don't fully believe in me. But again, like you said, what matters is that I believe in myself, and I know I'm working hard and I'm striving for something. So
Yeah.
I I really see weirdly in myself since like I moved away and realized like, oh, this is what I'm doing, like a bright future. Like, oh, I see myself being happy, like just keeping this hustle and keeping this work, no matter what it is, I feel like I'll be happy with it.
Well, and dude, that's the thing too. You have to also remember that there's a lot of people out there. Like I live in a kind of an area where, I mean, you've been to the house. It's right on the border of a few different communities, and there's a very affluent community, and there's one that's kind of middle class, and then there's one that's a little
Mhm.
rough, about 5-10 minutes away. And man, out of all of those groups, the people who are the most miserable are the affluent ones. I mean, like it doesn't. The money doesn't make you happy. It doesn't.
Mhm.
I got caught up in that for a long time. I got caught up in the idea of like, oh, once I have the big house or the nice car or the movie theater or the pinball machine or whatever, then I'll be happy. And it just never came. It's not you that stuff is cool for a month or two and then it's on to the next thing. You have to be like I'm lucky that I found something that I enjoy. I legitimately enjoy going to work and then I it does well for me financially. Like that's great. But I would do it for, like if you find something that you're passionate about, even if you're just making ends meet, then that's fine. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like so much more important to be fulfilled than to be wealthy. It
Yep.
just it doesn't, luckily I'm, I do well and I'm fulfilled in what I do, but that's not always the case. And so who cares what those other people say, and the other thing is also I'm fascinated at how many people got degrees that they don't even use. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I went to law school and that's a very specific degree. So, that's one thing. But I know a ton of people who got psychology degrees and all different things and communications degrees or journalism degrees, and then they're just working at some job, So who cares? You might as well go get a degree in something you really, really love. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And as far as like, oh, what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? You'll figure that out when it doesn't work out.
exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're gonna do fine. You're gonna have a great time doing it, and you're gonna, like I said, I mean, you are. I think the best part about this is someone who's had some time and is on the kind of the, in the mid part of his life. It is so much better to do what you're doing and not have to regret not doing it than to do it. And if you do it and fail, so much better than wondering if could have made it. You
Yep.
know, so much better. So, well, let me ask you. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions that I ask everybody, and it's always fun to ask young people these questions because you've had so much life experience. It's
Right,
easy
right.
for you to answer, but I'll ask you the first one. What would you say up to date is your biggest success in life?
Oh, shoot. And I feel like my life just started as soon as I graduated high school.
You're right. It did.
It's weird.
It did.
I don't know. There's so many things that I find success in. Like, again, like, my favorite project that I've done acting-wise so far would probably be working for the Oscars or, like, working for that, museum. Because not only was I getting to do the acting, but it was like I remember going up to one of the directors, and I was like, "Hey, I noticed that you guys had a camera set up at the dolly zoom area," because the dolly zoom is, like, this one of the coolest effects in cinema. I was like, "If you need someone to do that, come find me." And
Yeah.
they heard me say that, and they're like, "Oh, he's really interested." So they went and found me because we were filming something else with like one of the sharks doing like this movement thing, and they're like, "Hey, no, we need that kid," and they pulled me and they took me over to the Dolly Zoom area, and that was so cool. But like career wise, that was a success because that's just what I've done, like the biggest and what meant the most to me.
Yeah.
But then otherwise, and I'm thinking about this because we have this friend group between me, Austin, Maya, Maddie, Dom, Zach, and Zariah, and we call ourselves the Master Edgewords. I don't know where that name came from.
Okay.
I think I was called Edge in senior year, so then they thought that was funny, and then they just kept rolling with it. But it's just like that friend group was probably the most I ever hung out with people outside of school, and that group was the most who ever cared about me. Because I remember, like, before COVID or even during COVID, like, I would call my friends on Zoom, call them on Discord once a month, or even less than that. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you go to my church. How has it been? It's been 3 months since I've talked to you." But then with, like, this friend group in particular, we were hanging out almost every day during the summer, or even if we were all together, there was 2 of us together from the group,
Yeah.
and we just
Yeah.
made this one big, weirdly, like, a family in a sort, where we all cared about each other, and we were all, like, talking and communicating to each other, and we went to, like, Disneyland, we went to go visit, uh, Maya and Maddie in Utah at one point, and
Yeah.
we were, like, 17, 18, and 19 years old, and we're doing, like, these big trips by ourselves where yeah, I also would have never pictured being in a successful friend group where we got to do big things like that.
And the thing is so I still like I had a lot of different friends in a lot of different groups, but my close friend group, like my 2, 3, 4 best friends, still talk to them to this day from
Yep.
middle school and high school. And that group, like forging that together and just keeping up with each other and doing that, that'll last forever. Those will become they are like family. I mean,
Mhm.
it's and that's one of the things that's been so cool is being able to be a part of that. Like I bought this house. I remember when I bought it. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I wanted a house that my kids would feel comfortable bringing their friends to. And sometimes it was just so funny how like I would come in to the house and I would see you and like Maya. I mean, where's Austin? And they'd be like, oh, Austin went off with Dom somewhere. We're just
Yeah.
hanging out. I'd be like, okay, I guess you guys are hanging out. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, that was, yeah, you guys are all great. And I love some of the things you said about success in this time because yeah, I mean, all of those things are just foundational things for greater things when you get older. You've got a good solid foundation that will make you kind of that will make you be successful in anything you end up doing. The other thing I thought that was interesting about what you said is as a parent of a son that's the same age, I get the chance to talk to Austin every week and I get to see him progress. And it's been so much fun to watch him. And one of the things that's interesting for a parent is you guys, when you guys are kids, you guys are kind of like supporting characters in our story arc, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then now you guys go off and you start trying to make your story and we become supporting characters in your stories. And that is it's a weird thing that I know at least I am kind of ready for. Like with Austin, I'm just like, hey man, I cannot wait. I am gave you all the tools I could to go out there and be successful. And now it's your turn to go out there and do it. And it's just a privilege to sit there and watch it. And it's been a
Mhm.
privilege to sit there and watch that with you too, to just sit there and go, okay, Edward's making a play. Let's see how it goes out. You know what I mean? Let's see how it happens. Because that's the thing. It's fun to watch you guys make plays, make big risks, and just see it happen and be like, dude, I knew that kid when he was just singing in Virtus doing Les Mis. You know what I mean? Like it's super cool. So now let's go to the next question, which is what has been your biggest failure in life and what have you learned from it?
I think my biggest failures, yeah, I went straight out of high school and money was just on my mind. And it was like, oh, and I saw success in money. Like, oh, if you're the
Mm.
riches, then you're the most successful because you got all this money. You can do like whatever you want. You could buy whatever you want. You could eat whatever you want. You got the money to do that. But then, yeah, I took the safe route at first, and I think I've been very fortunate where I found out really early in my age that, oh, I don't want to play it safe anymore. I want to take this huge risk. And thankfully, I only did like one semester at college because I know some people, they get their degree and they don't figure it out until after they have that degree. And they're like, oh, actually, I'm more interested in this, or I wish I did this because I'm more passionate about this. But then I took the safe route of becoming that computer scientist or doing that major. But like, it's weird because I feel like I wasted so much time doing that first semester, doing that computer science. But then at the same time, I'm like, that's where I realized, oh, that's not something I want to do. And since I've decided to choose theater instead of computer science, I haven't even regretted making that decision. Like I've been so happy making this choice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like my
It
biggest
did- Go ahead. Say what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, like my biggest failure is that I should have just like took the risk or followed my dreams or been more confident in my passions and know exactly what I wanted to do sooner and not have so many outside worries and like so many, I guess, like negativity being surrounded by me where it's like, oh, that's not a possibility. When if you work hard for it, it definitely is.
Yeah, no, you're dead on, and I think that, yeah, everything you just said is great. The thing I would just tell you is, dude, when you get older, you realize like you're gonna, when you get to be like 30, 40, you'll be like, dude, that was like 6 months, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like that. I remember when I was in college, and it's so interesting when you go through things, and it really is line upon line, precept upon precept. Like, you know, you build strength as you're going. Because I remember when I got back from my mission, I went to community college at ARC, and I remember thinking, this is really hard. Like, this is really hard. 5-page paper, double spaced. Like, that was really tough. And then I got to Sac State, and I'm like, man, this is really hard. You know, I'm like, this is really hard. They were like 8-page papers, double spaced, 8-page maximums, right? And then I get to law school, and it's like 30-page minimum. You know what I mean? And you're like, or no, it was an 8-page minimum, so you're struggling to get to 8 pages, and then it was a 30-page max, and you're like trying to squeeze everything into 30 pages because there's so much stuff that you want to say. And you just look back, and then I look back at AR, and I'm like, I don't know what I was talking about. That was cake. You know what I mean? Or thinking even just being like 4 years of law school, that is an eternity. And then now I look back, and I'm like, that was nothing. That was like 13 years ago that I got out of law school. You know what I mean? I was like, that's crazy. A year flies by so fast now. So yeah, man. I mean, you're gonna, you know, you were right in that you should be grateful that you figured it out as quickly as you did. Because so many people don't. And even for those people, if there's people who are listening to this and they're like in their 25, 30 years old, I didn't get out of law school until I was 31 years old. You know what I mean? And it's worked out great for me. And I remember thinking back then when everyone else was 25 and 26, I was like, dude, I am like I'm a grandpa here. You know what I mean? And now I look back and I'm like, 31, that's nothing. That's nothing. You know what I mean? And so yeah, man, I mean, like you're right on with that stuff. I mean, you've done, you know, you've learned a lot of lessons really quickly, and that's great, you know. But so here's the last question, and this is a long way away, obviously, but one day you're going to pass away, and when you do, there'll be a funeral, and someone will give your eulogy. What is the one thing that you hope someone says about Edward Stach in his eulogy?
I think I just want them to say that I was happy doing everything that I was doing, no matter where it is. Like, because they were saying, like, again, yeah, acting might not be something I do in the future, or like the degree I use might not work, or who knows, I might become a completely different person when I find a new passion that I found even bigger and better for me. But because I'm just happy that I'm doing what I get to do, and I'm surrounded by the people that make me happy, I hope they, when I leave this earth, are also happy themselves that they got to spend some time with me in a sense. 'cause such a, like, weird I'm having, like, a weird thought process, I'm, like, thinking about this so hard now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I I always saw, like, everyone at my funeral because, like, in the movies and even, like, the real funerals I've been in, like, everyone's so sad, and it's like, everyone's dealing with their grief in a different way, but I'm like, I hope people play music and they hit it like, they bring a dance floor and everyone's
Yeah.
having fun, they're doing all their things, and instead of it being, like, a day about me, it's more of, like, a day of connection through me, where now people are meeting other people that I may have had in my life, and now they're either talking about a memory or they're talking about their own same interest, and
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
would be so cool.
Yeah. It's you brought this up earlier and you talked about how just some random person sent you a message and said you're really funny, you should do more reels, and that
Mm,
made your day. I think that is I've thought a lot about, over the last few years, especially, like, what do I want out of this life? Like, you kind of attain all these things. You brought up money and all those things. And, money, it's, I've learned, you've seen the movie Forrest Gump. I'm sure you're a movie buff. You've
mhm,
seen it.
yep,
Okay.
yep, I've seen it.
Yeah. So there's a scene where he talks about Lieutenant Dan sending him, he opens up the letter that they had invested in Apple, and Lieutenant Dan told him he didn't have to worry about money anymore. And
Mhm,
Forrest Gump just says, "That's good. One less thing to worry about." That is dead on exactly what money is. Like, people think that money is going to fix all their problems. Money is just going to fix one problem,
yep,
right? And then everything else is still a problem. And in some ways, there's more problems. And so yeah, I mean, that is not where you're going to get your happiness. You're going to get your happiness through meaning, through meaningful
yeah,
exchanges. And another thing that I've learned in life, especially doing this podcast, when people have kind of sent messages to me, or people who just send a nice word on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or just shoot me a text, is that there's a lot of times where you sit there and you look at yourself and you go, I don't know if I'm even making headway, or if I'm making a difference, or if I'm doing anything right. Maybe this is not the right way. And then you realize that there's somebody out there who was watching the whole time that you inspired, you
mhm,
know. And so I bet, Edward, especially if your Instagram and stuff is public, is that there's a lot of people watching you and what you're doing, and you are probably giving inspiration to someone else who's on the fence about whether they're going to chase their dreams or not, and are watching you do these things, and you're never going to know it. You're never going to
yeah,
hear about it, and there's something to that. So
mhm,
there's something to that. So I can tell you personally, as we're wrapping this up, that uh, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
thank
There's a
you.
reason why I asked you and not Dom to come on and just kidding. I'm just kidding, Dom. I love you. You know I do. I'll have you on a podcast one day when
I'm
you
like,
do.
I'm about to see him in about an hour, oh, no.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll have Dom on the podcast when he does something interesting. No, so anyway, no, but I am super proud of you for being somebody to show all these other kids that you can take a risk, and I'm rooting
Yeah,
for you. I know there's a lot of people on this side rooting for you. I know that all the kids here, we talk about you and they're just proud of you. I know Lexi, she doesn't say it, but she, you're forging a path that could potentially be a path that she takes, and if she does, that, you'll be a wealth of information for her. So I appreciate that.
and that's so nice for you to say because that's what I like, saying those things and knowing that I'm inspiring other people is, like, what got me, I think, into acting in the first place is, like, causing different emotions in different people and having, like, their own self-realization or something, and it's, like, I think that's another reason why I went into acting, but, like, at the end of the day, like, with this whole entire movie and, like, fame stuff, that's not really what's important, and most of that is just luck, and like you said, it's just that one person that's either at a play I'm in, or they saw a commercial, or in fact, they could be, like, listening to this podcast right now, and they're like, "Oh, we want that guy," and that's the thing, it's just that's the luck, and it's nothing that I can really control except focusing on acting and like what I'm inspired to do and what I inspired to change in other people, and then having other people reach out to me and like, here, let's give you an opportunity to maybe branch it out or make it bigger and reach more people. And yeah, it's a crazy field and there's so much risk, but there's so many rewards, which is what I'm so excited to see.
Dude, the thing that's cool about this and being a risk taker, a calculated risk taker, but being a risk taker is you're going to have such a more fulfilled life. You really are.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be able to come back and just go, man. I remember when I came back from my mission, I remember saying to myself about 3 months before, I was like, I want to go on. I want to, the mission. You joke about it. Austin will understand this a little bit. It's almost like life. You fly in, you're there, and then you die, and then you fly home, right? And it's like, I was like, when I die on this mission, I want to know that I gave every ounce to everything I did, and I want to crawl on that plane home because I gave every ounce of my energy. And I've kind of taken that same idea to life, and it served me well, and sometimes it served me very not well, right? I mean, it's a double-edged sword. When you have that life, you get to tout your successes, and you got to own big failures, right? And
Yes.
That's tough, right? It's tough to do that self-inner work to like go back and go, ugh, wish I had another shot at that, but at 44 years old, I can look back now and say, if I was on a plane and it was crashing, I could say, it was a good run, right? And you're going to have that too. Is you're going to look back on your life, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, it was a good run. And you're going to inspire a ton of people. You already are. You really are. Like, you come up in conversations a lot, and all of you guys do. All of you guys do. We joke about Dom and, I remember every time I see Ty, I tell him to shut up. But, like I think about all you guys all the time. I really do. I think about Maya and Maddie, I think about Michaela and Nasli, I think about all of them. And what's with the face?
I forgot to say their names earlier. I was like, it was funny because when I was listing out the members of like our friend group, I was like, I swear I forgot someone.
Yeah, I mean, Michaela and Nasli, they're very forgettable. I forget them all the time. No, Michaela was cool because I know she wants to be an attorney, and so we've had some conversations about that.
Extremely hard. The both of them, like Nasli's at Davis and Michaela's at Sierra right now, but she's doing so much with her personal life right now, and it's like we're on our different paths, but we're going forward.
Yeah, I told her and her dad, she hit me up for a job, and I wanted to give her one, but we just didn't have like, she needed something part-time right now. Like, and so I was like, I just don't have a part-time position right now. I only have full-time positions, but like, yeah, man, like if she ever had a space to like, she's an example to me of what we were talking about before. I mean, I don't know, she's probably very smart, but I'm just saying, like, as far as the hard work goes, I'd hire her in a second. I mean, like it wouldn't even be a question. If she could work full-time, I'd hire her in a second. Because she's driven, she knows what she wants, she's got that tenor. Like, I remember talking to her for about 5 minutes about law and just going, if I can't talk you out of being a lawyer, you're going to be a good one. So yeah, you can definitely. So yeah, as soon as she has, as soon as she has the ability, I would hire her in a second. I mean, all you guys, every single one of you guys, I remember when I talked to people about John Adams, because I have my feelings on it. I shouldn't say that I'm the PSO president, so I probably shouldn't say that. But I mean, like, but the one thing that I always tell everybody, and you guys are the example of this, is I tell everybody who asks why I send my kids to John Adams, I say, I think probably 3/4 of your high school graduating class came through my house at one point or another. And I never met a bad kid in the bunch. You guys are all absolutely exemplary kids. And so it's like, I would absolutely like do it over again just because of that friend group that you guys have, because you are an amalgam of your 5 best friends. And so you guys are all going to be super successful just because you're going to have each other. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny because I think at first, as soon as I graduated John Adams, I was like, "Oh, thank God I'm done with that school." There was so much work, there was so much to do, and I know Michaela for sure because Michaela was the events coordinator, so she was doing all the dances on top of her, like, regular schoolwork, so she was working
Jeez.
even harder, so I was like, "So glad I'm out of that place," but then, like, going to community college, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad that they pushed me," because
Yeah.
now I'm at these places where it's funny because, like, even the people in my acting class, they're like, "Oh, this is so much work. We're writing this, uh, minimum, by the way, four-page paper," and then I end up with, like, 72 pages, and it's because I went to John Adams because
Yeah.
I just I was very inspired to push myself and do this work, and, yeah, it was, like, 72 pages, but it was super fun in a weird way, and it was, like, so many
Yeah.
hours, and John Adams, like, made us strive, and m yeah, we just got to this mindset of like, "Oh, if you put in the hard work, it does pay off,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You guys
I
had
see it all the time.
it's funny you bring that up. My high school experience was not that. I mean, I didn't do homework the entire 4 years I was there. I mean, literally, I did not do a day of homework, and I somehow graduated. And I think it had something to do with being on the basketball team and just having rugged good looks. But the thing is that, uh, uh, so when I got to community college, I struggled because I didn't learn those study skills. And then I remember when because Austin wanted to leave. You probably remember this. He wanted to leave, I think, junior year, and I was like, we can't do that. You got to stick it out. And I remember senior year, him coming through and he's like quoting Nietzsche and Plato and like all these different things. And I'm going, I didn't
Crazy.
read that. I didn't read that till upper division college. You know what I mean? And so you guys are doing senior theses and arguments and all these things. And I'm going, holy cow. So when he went to Sierra, I was like, dude, this is gonna be a cakewalk for you. Like you go in there and that's nothing. You're gonna run through that if you just apply yourself. So yeah, you guys have, like I said, you guys have had you guys have a great foundation to do big things, and it's like I said, it's just cool to watch it. So for people who want to follow you, where do they find you?
I would just say my Instagram. I post almost everything on Instagram. I got my backstage account, but that's just more of like, oh, I did this little credit in this commercial. But yeah, Instagram is my main platform right now. And usually whenever I'm in something, like recently, my friend just did a vlog of him going back up to Reading and he passed Sacramento. So I said, hey, let me join you. But like I was in his vlog, so I posted it on there and I'm like, oh, like if people just want to watch me have a good time at a random Dave and Buster's, like this is where I'm at. And then if people want to see where I'm being successful within my acting career, that's where I'm posting it. And then if people want to see what I'm doing with friends at that time, that's where I'm also posting it. So
Nice.
I
All
think
right.
just Instagram is that. Yeah.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's just at Edward_Stach. So
All
literally
right. Easy.
my name. Yeah.
Yeah, easy. All right. Well, good. Well, we're going to wrap this up. Really appreciate you coming on, and it's been awesome to talk to you. For those of you who come through, subscribe. We got a bunch more stuff coming up. I got some pretty interesting irons in the fire. We'll see if they come up. But yeah, it's always interesting when you have these actors and wrestlers can be quite a finicky bunch. So I've been hit up with working with some of these agents. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do it. I got to tell you, it's frustrating. Like getting a response and getting them to, I actually, I'll spill the beans on this one. I had an in on Ice-T. Ice-T was potentially coming on, and then he wanted a ton of money, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
nope, not doing that. So, but yeah, like we have, it's a fun deal. So, but anyway, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We'll see which ones hit and which land. But thanks, and Edward, can't wait to see you. A couple of years, we'll see where you're at. We'll have you come back, and when you win your first Oscar, I hope you grace the Edlow Podcast.
Yes.
Let us know.
Yeah.
So,
I will be doing that for sure. They were telling me like a couple of my friends are like, you should plan your Oscar speech now. Make sure you have every name written down. I'm like, okay, I got this.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, all right. Well, for those listening, we'll catch you next time. See ya.